Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report presented by Geico of Mobile. The first podcast to bring you the local inshore, offshore, and onshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. This week's sponsor is your local Geico insurance office. Everybody knows Geico has great rates on auto rates, but did you know they also have great rates on boats, ATVs, motorcycles, and personal watercraft? You guys give Ron Davis a call at 251-445-0053. Not only will Ron work hard to get you the lowest premiums possible, but you'll also have the service you expect and can count on if you ever need to make a claim. Geico does even more than insure your valuable items. They also offer on-the-water services like towing, battery jumps, gas delivery, and you can save by bundling these services with your insurance. If you're an Alabama saltwater fisherman, support the local insurance agent who helps bring you the fishing report each week. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, at 251-445-0053 or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-AL. Welcome back, guys. I am Butch Theory, and I'm joined with the famous or infamous, I'm not sure how to introduce you here, old Pier Pounder. How you doing, Mr. David?
I'm good, yeah.
Got a long list of titles. President of the ACFA, the Pier Pounder.
And that's nothing compared to what my wife calls me. Sometimes.
That's right.
Yeah.
I understand that. Well, it's good to have you on. I don't think you and I have ever close together.
First opportunity, I've been looking forward to it. Yeah, I really appreciate the invitation. It's,
Good. My wife, I don't know, she must like you. Every time I asked, who's in the co-host with me? Well, you got David on yet? What about the Pier Pounder? What about the Pier Pounder? Always.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart.
Yes,
indeed.
For sure. Definitely the better half. Well, what's been going on with you, buddy? I don't want to ruin the onshore report. I know you're going to give that to us a little bit later on in the show, but how you been doing?
Been doing real good, trying to avoid thunderstorms like everybody else. But,
popped up today, didn't it?
Oh, wow. And it's about a daily occurrence. You know, it's so typical July type weather to where we're in this tepid, humid pattern to where these thunderstorms blow up diurnally with the heating of the day. In the morning, down along the coast, you can get thunderstorms right along the beach. Then as the land heats up a little bit later, it starts to blow up over land. And fortunately, then you maybe start getting a little sea breeze along the coast that can help things make it a little more pleasant along the beach in the afternoon. And really, that's a good opportunity, along the beaches in the afternoons in July are often quite pleasant with that sea breeze because you have a little, stirring of the wind and a little decreased humidity right along the coast. With the outgoing tide, it often triggers a bite for the fish.
Well, it has certainly been hot, I can tell you that. Joe and I actually got to get out. We chartered my brother's boat, the Escape, out of Captain Mike's on Dolphin Island. We chartered it on Friday, and we had a really good time. We smoked some Boston butts on the green egg, and we had a good old time, smashed some snapper. It was a good time. Finally got to get out again. I did, and Joe and I guess that's only the second or third time we fished together all summer. So it was nice to get together with the big guy, and you know how we do it, hang out, catch some fish.
Yeah, that's really good times, especially when you can reunite with the old fishing buddies.
Oh, yeah.
This past weekend, the Alabama Coastal Fishermen's Association was actually able to host our first tournament for the year. And we, kind of approached it in small steps. But since it was the Diet weekend, the Roy Martin.
I was about to say, hold on now. You're going to upset a lot of people. You can't say Diet. Corey, I said that to Corey not too long ago, and he didn't cuss me out. But he got on to me. He said, no, sir, not any longer. Anyways, go ahead. That's right. Doesn't roll off the tongue near as good, does it?
Not nearly, yeah. But we miss Roy Martin for sure. He was there for a long time. The ACFA decided that we were going to include all 12 species that we have for this year. And we actually had a pretty good turnout, and a lot of kids showed up as well. Weighed in over 50 fish. Had a few redfish that were too big and some white trout and ground mullet that were a little too small. But overall, just had a really fun time. And we've got everything published up on the ACFA website now. You were talking about the weather, and it was pretty darn hot down there at Fowl River with no breeze. And we decided instead of our rodeo warm-up next year, we're going to call it the Rodeo Hotter Than Hades tournament.
I believe it. Saturday was whew.
It was cooking, wasn't it?
It was, man. Saturday was stifling. It's hard to be outside if you're not in the water.
Yeah, or running in a boat, or at least in the morning we had
some sort of moving breeze.
Some breeze, yeah.
Well, all right, man. Let's get right into this thing. We're gonna have Jason Kudilis on with the Mobile Bay National Estuary Program to talk about the trash blows before we have, gosh, how many? I forget the number of tickets the rodeo sold last year, but I want to say it was around. I don't want to lie. I don't want to tell you. But anyway, so you have a lot of anglers on the water this weekend. There's going to be lots of trucks and trailers being pulled to and from water. So let's see what Jason has to say. All right, guys, you guys please welcome back the Mobile Bay National Estuary Program Restoration Project Manager. How are we doing today, Jason?
Good. How are you guys?
Good, buddy. Say that last
Very
name
good.
for me one more time so I don't mess it up again.
Kudilis. Jason Kudilis.
All right, bud. Well, so trash blows. We know there's going to be a ton of people on the water and trailer and boats all around water this weekend. We talked to you last year around the rodeo around this time, but for anybody who might have missed it, just kind of let everybody know what the Trash Blows program is all about.
Right. Well, the title of the campaign says it all. You know, trash blows literally out of the beds of trucks, off our roadways into our creeks and streams, and then, of course, out of our boats. About every time I go to Dolphin Island, I see an empty bag of ice blowing around there on the bridge.
Oh, yeah, among other things. What's different about this year's campaign than last year? What are you guys going to be up to this weekend?
Well, you know, we're obviously having to dial things back a little bit, just like the JCs are with the rodeo format, but we're still going to have our informational signs out on DIP and at different locations, our campaign style signs just on the drive down there, trying to remind people to keep that trash stowed. Butch, last year I think you said stow before you go, and I kind of stole that line. We've been using it. But we're going to be looking to do some live streaming down there at the weigh-in and just trying to talk to some people to see if they're using their stash to trash bags and hopefully reducing litter in our waterways.
I saw something about a truck bed trash can design competition. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we're getting ready to roll that out in the next few months, but we're looking to, you know, work with some innovative and ingenuitive people around here to come up with an idea to reduce that truck bed trash. So something that people could easily construct and build and put in the back of their truck, you know, before you go off, leaving a construction site or from the bait shop, just something you could easily throw that trash in.
Do I need to be a designer to enter, or can I just let you guys know my idea?
No, we're just looking for some good old South Alabama innovation and people thinking about it. You know, anything. It could be on a napkin. If you want to get some computer-aided drawings put together, we're just looking for ideas. It's going to be kind of a Shark Tank style design competition.
I like it. What's the prize?
I believe it's a pretty substantial amount. It's around $3,500 to the best of my knowledge, as well as we're going to try to work with that individual to put those into production, see if we can't have them rolled out.
That's awesome, man. Well, tell us a little bit more about the National Estuary Program in general. What do you guys do?
Yeah, we're kind of that behind-the-scenes organization. A lot of folks aren't necessarily familiar with us, but we are one of 28 national estuary programs in the nation. And so we're kind of a good way to think of us is kind of like the United Way. We like to mobilize resources. We like to convene people and get projects going from idea to action. And so we're actually a division of the Dauphin Island Sea Lab. They represent that hardcore science from the marine standpoint. And then we're kind of that restoration resource management arm that really works with folks along both sides of the bay to come up with solutions to problems that we have around.
Okay. I was looking a little bit earlier at some of you guys' stuff. Tell me a little bit about Ditch the Disposables initiative and why should anglers care about that?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We've really been focusing on trash the last few years because it's a big problem. It's unsightly, but also people continue to tell us that it's an issue that bothers them. And so we've worked on litter abatement projects where we're actually removing litter from the waterways. We collect data on that litter. Literally every piece of litter that we pull out of our waterways, we have some data to represent that. And what we're seeing is it's a lot of single-use disposable items, whether that's takeout food packaging, stuff from convenience stores, fast food restaurants. A lot of it is styrofoam, plastic, and paper-based. And so we're trying to work with restaurants to figure out how we can reduce some of those entering our waterways based on changing products that are a little more eco-friendly.
That makes great sense. First thing that comes to my mind there is, aren't biodegradable options a lot more expensive?
Well, we're still doing some research on that. It's part of it is, you know, and I'm not into the restaurant business, but it's a supply and demand. So depending on how much volume you're actually selling of your product and how much your packaging needs are. It's kind of like an economy of scales. If you're a huge restaurant, you can get those costs down a little more reasonable because you're using more volume. But we do think that there are avenues for restaurants to poll their customers and see what their interests are. Would they be interested in paying an extra nickel or an extra quarter for a meal, knowing that they were going to use packaging and practices that were a little more sustainable? And we do have some data to show that people are willing to pay a little more to get that product.
Absolutely, man. That's a no-brainer. I know that you guys have been responsible for a lot of real improvement to the ecosystem around the bay. If some of our listeners have any ideas on what else needs to be done, or if they have some ideas on what else needs attention, how can they get those suggestions to you guys?
Well, we're actually in the process of developing comprehensive watershed management plans for all of the coastal watersheds. And so, I mean, from Bila Battery to Dog River to Weeks Bay to Bon Secours, you name it. And so some of those plans have already been done, and we've heard from those people in those communities of what they want to see, but there's some that haven't. And so that whole process is driven by stakeholder input. And so we love to have people bring those ideas to the table because they're the ones living it. They're in that watershed every day, and they know it best. And so there's always an opportunity for input. And what's important is we take that input and don't put it on a shelf. We put it into action and try to implement those projects.
That's awesome. Well, how can people support your work? What's the best way to get in touch with you guys and people have any input?
Well, certainly, social media, Mobile Bay National Estuary Program is always a good way. You can always contact us here at the office. There's a lot of opportunities for citizens to get involved and volunteer. And a lot of it's just thinking about anglers and folks that enjoy outdoor recreation like your listeners, doing the things that they probably already do, using that good judgment and good practices to try to take care of these resources that we enjoy so much. That helps us out a lot right there.
Man, that's awesome. We love what you guys are doing, and we appreciate you being on. But the real question is you fishing the Alabama Deep Sea Fishing Rodeo?
Yes, sir. I'll be I'm taking a little lead time Friday, so I'll be out there. My wife's birthday falls on the rodeo weekend, so I've told her we got to work out a deal with that.
What you going to go after? What you can catch?
Probably sticking inshore for me. It's tough. Some of these guys have those trout holes hemmed up. They really know where to pull out the big ones, but always take my luck there. Maybe some sheephead. Spanish is, I think, a good category you can luck up on.
Oh, yeah. All right, man. Well, I hope to see you at one of the weigh-ins there. Where can everyone check out your live streams again?
We'll be live streaming through our Facebook page, Mobile Bay National Estuary Program.
Jason, that's awesome info. I mean, it just doesn't take a whole lot of effort to stow it before you go. Trash blows.
That's right. And you guys, we appreciate you spreading the word with us. The more education we can get out, hopefully the less trash we're removing from our waterways.
Absolutely, buddy. We appreciate you being on, Jason, and we'll talk to you soon. Good luck this weekend.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right, Mr. David, let's head on down to Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, Alabama area and see what Scott Kennedy's been up to, Whistling Waters, Kayak and Guided Tours. What you say, Cap Scott? What you been up to down there, buddy?
Tell you, we have been hitting it hard lately. Been doing a lot of sweating in the mix. It's been definitely the dog days of summer, but there's still a few fish around to be caught.
Tell us a little bit about the inshore situation over there on the east side with you guys. Speckled trout, redfish. What you been chasing?
Yes, we've been. This is the kind of time of year where we try not to be too picky because each day kind of changes up. You never really know what you're going to get. Of course, our main two we still be targeting are the speckled trout and the redfish. But we've been catching, a lot of white trout in the mix. Been seeing a decent number of Spanish mackerel in the bay lately, which nothing like you catch off the beaches or off the piers or anything. But we're still picking them up from here and there. Getting some small sharks in the mix, kind of little bull sharks, that kind of stuff. And so as long as you're going into a trip, inshore right now with an open mind, you'll definitely find something to keep you happy.
Yeah, I think Scott hit on it there. With the different species available, to be able to diversify your approach or, just take advantage of anything that's, happens to be around that particular day. If you see some Spanish in the bay, why not, try for them for a little while. And if things slow down, even few good flounder have been showing up here lately.
What you been catching?
Oh, yeah, I tell you, so I've been throwing a little bit of everything at them. We've caught some on some, just the pop and cork with the voodoo shrimps underneath them. We've been throwing the little slicks, had some luck with them with the little slicks. Probably the most productive thing, Spanish.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's kind kind of what we've been finding them. You know, we've been fishing for the speckled trout, but picking up the Spanish kind of right there in the same spots we've been catching up the speckled trout. And so, you know, we've been throwing that. Probably the most productive bait we've had on them is, you know, just a mirror dine, something real bright and flashy. And it's, you know, kind of like I said, we'll see them around, so we know they're around. We're not necessarily 100% targeting them, but we're, you know, fishing for these trout at the same time, and we've been picking up the Spanish in the mix with them too. So it's always a nice little bonus to throw in the cooler. I know Spanish kind of have a bad reputation with some people, but I tell you, me personally, I love to eat up a Spanish mackerel.
Yeah, they get a bad reputation when you start losing $10 lures to them.
That's right. That'll do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've done my fair share of that. There's no doubt about that. I like to run that 20-pound mono as my leader, and I tell you, they can cut through that in a heartbeat.
Unfortunately, yeah, but they're great targets of opportunity.
Do you bleed those Spanish whenever you catch them, Scott?
Yeah, I tell you, I bleed the Spanish definitely. I've gotten to where I bleed just about every fish I catch. About the only one I don't bleed is a speckled trout, and I kind of laugh about it because when you clean a trout, I swear they don't have red blood in them, because I couldn't tell you hardly any of them I've cleaned that bleed on me. So I don't do it to those. You know, redfish, Spanish mackerel. You know, even when we're catching the snapper off the beaches now, or you know, when we take our kayaks off the beaches, I'll start bleeding those. And it's amazing how big of a difference bleeding a fish out can make to the quality of the meat.
Huge difference, for sure. Well, let's go back a little bit and talk about those speckled trout. I know it's kind of heating up, and so popping cork, live shrimp, voodoo, things like that. You seen anything other than that with speckled trout?
You know, the biggest thing is we've just been having to get after them extremely early. You know, if you're trying to kind of find the deepest water we can, the earliest time we can in the day. I've had a few days where my depth finder's been reading, you know, 83, 84 degrees. And when it gets hot like that, especially in the middle of the day, those fish just, they are not very active, it seems like. So we've been doing some extremely early trips, you know, getting out right as, you know, as soon as you can start to see. And, you know, of course, I always start out throwing a topwater bait. That's my favorite thing to work, you know, an old super spook, or, you know, a Rapala skitter walk, something like that. So that's kind of what I start with. And, you know, I've mentioned it before, if I'm throwing that and I'm not getting too many bites, or if I'm getting short struck, then that's when I start picking up the, you know, the popping corks, the live bait, and, you know, just kind of really slowing it down after I get my fill of trying to throw and catch them on the top water.
Where you been primarily catching those specks? I know you say you've been from a kayak mostly. Where you been? What waters you been on?
So I've been spending a lot of my time in Mobile Bay lately. You know, a lot of the areas I primarily fish, you know, kind of around the mouths of these tidal rivers, tidal creeks. And I'd say the biggest difference, what I've been doing now, is, like I said, just finding the deepest water I can that's relative to those spots. So they're trying to get down. I feel like they're trying to get down in that deep stuff. May only be 1 or 2 degrees cooler at the bottom of it, but it's a little less affected by the sunlight and everything. So they're able to get down there. And I tell you, I think we've had a lot of these little pop-up storms rolling through. It's kind of churned the bay up a little bit, got the water a little muddy. So if you can find some clean water, you know, closer to the mouth of the bay, that's always a bonus too.
Man, Scott, that's a great report, bud. I'm glad you guys have been getting them. Hopefully you got like a little fan or something mounted on the side of your kayak, keep you cooled off out there.
I tell you, definitely need it. I've been taking pieces of ice and dropping it down the back of my shirt, and even that, it's been rough. It's you know, it's nice having the summer around, but it definitely makes you ready for the fall.
No doubt, man. Old trick I have for you. You wear the buff. Keep the sun off your neck and your face. I like to keep 2 of them.
Yeah.
I like to keep 2 of them. I keep one in the cooler because it's going to get wet from sweat. Keep one on me, and whenever that one gets hot, change them out. That way you always got a cool buff on. How about that?
That's a good idea. I'm going to have to put that in the memory vault. I'm going to be using that next time I get out.
Pro tip right there for you. Won't charge extra for that. But I got to get a tip from you. How about that?
That works for me. We can trade off tips.
All right, man. This week's Inshore tip is brought to us by Coastal Conservation of Alabama. A great way to support conservation projects like the Claude Petite Flounder and Speckled Trout Hatchery and the University of South Alabama Cobia Tagging Project is through the purchase of a distinctive CCA Alabama Saltwater license plate. Just head over to Alabama Department of Revenue's distinctive license plate page at revenue.alabama.gov to get yours. What you think for the CCA Alabama tip this week, Scott?
All right, so my tip this week, and I kind of touched on it just a few minutes ago, is just really slowing things down. Once that sun starts to get up and the water's really, really warming up, that water in the bay especially has been just a couple degrees short of bathtub water. So it's got these fish, real sluggish, just kind of real slow. So I've been really slowing down my retrieves and everything. I'll throw a couple extra casts in an area that I've been working over, and just giving these fish every opportunity I can to find the bait and eat it, because it's, like I said, it's been hot. It's just as hot for them as it is us. So once they get warm like that, it just they don't want to spend a whole lot of energy and move around a whole lot. So find you some deep water, work you some extra casts in it, and just take things slow.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Too hot to do anything.
Yeah, they're like that dog that sits under the tree on a hot summer day. He's not going to chase cars on a hot summer day, is he?
That's right. No, probably not.
Exactly.
Yeah, that trout will just let that go on by. I'll get the next one.
Yeah, too hot. All right, Scott, that's an awesome tip, man, and a great report. If folks want to get with you and book a trip, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can either call or text at 251-408-2604. You can check out my website, whistlinwaters.com, or you can check out my page on Fishing Chaos. It's just under Whistling Waters Guided Fishing.
Awesome, buddy. Well, we appreciate the report as always, and stay cool out there and watch these storms and stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Oh, definitely, guys. We'll talk to y'all later.
Good stuff, Scott.
All right, man. Always good hearing from old Scott Kennedy. Dude can catch him now. I know he can.
Indeed, yeah.
Let's head on down to Mobile Bay, Dauphin Island. There's really no telling where Captain Patrick Garmeson's been fishing. What you up to, Captain Patrick?
Man, kind of dodging lightning bolts after this afternoon, man. This thing got pretty hot. A lot of that heat lightning, and there wasn't no heat to it, man. It was
straight lightning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got nice to hear too. You guys didn't get pinned out down there, did you?
No, man. We actually fished in the Mississippi Sound today, and most everything built up to the east of me, and we were able to get our full fishing trip in and back in, and never had any issues in the Sound. Heck, all the rain affected me on the ride home, trying to get gas and get the boat cleaned up and all that stuff this afternoon.
Well, that's better than affecting you while you're driving 45 mile an hour in a boat with no T-top.
That's right.
Yeah. Does the cloud cover help you or hurt you think, Patrick, when on days like that?
Man, I don't know. I mean, I think it helps in the sense that it slows down the heating of the water. But as far as the fish that I'm targeting, like I like to try to take advantage of a lot of things. So Spanish mackerel, speckled trout, redfish, triple tail, and Spanish mackerel seem to bite better on a bright sky. Triple tail are a lot easier to see on a bright sky. So I'm not opposed to having the sun barreling down on me. So I mean that's something that's certainly something I think about during the day. But I mean the cloud cover certainly provides some relief from the heat. And speckled trout and redfish aren't as, they're not as dependent. You don't depend on sight fishing and stuff like that this time of the year for those sort of things.
Well, what you been chasing, man? Let's talk speckled trout first. I know you said you were in the Sound. Just kind of walk us through about kind of where you've been and what they've been doing.
Yeah, so really about the last probably 5 days or so, I've been bouncing between the Sound and the Bay. We just came through that neap tide cycle, and man, we really had a really good days. First couple days off the neap tide in the Bay. Bobby and I was listening to a couple of older podcasts, and there was one recently that Bobby and I were talking about fishing the rigs and the reefs and the different things out in the bay, deeper water structure, and you get that really, really slick, calm conditions. And we were talking about throwing popping corks. And, and we're fishing areas that were 12, 15, 17, 18 feet deep. And throwing a popping cork was the ticket right behind that neap tide. I mean, we caught some really nice specks. We caught Spanish mackerel and had a lot of action with a popping cork. That was certainly something, that was really effective for us. Throwing just a live shrimp and a popping cork. Now, one thing that I did vary with is because each of my trips, most of the time I have 2 to 3 anglers or even more than that, but vary in that length. We talk about varying the depth of our slip corks a lot of times, where we're trying to say, all right, you may have one at 18 feet deep or 17 feet deep because your rig, the depth of the rig is there at about 18 feet. And then you have one at, say, 16 and then one up at 12 or 14, something like that. Well, I was varying the depth of the slip or the popping corks anywhere from 4 all the way to as 8 feet long. And David is actually one person that taught me about using a super long leader, and it's almost kind of a controlled free line. David and I fished together many moons ago up in the Mobile River, and he showed me this. He had a name for it. David, what was the name for the where you had the little bitty float?
Yeah, the pin float. Yeah.
So you showed me this, and it was that little bitty cigar float.
What'd you call it, David? Pin float?
A pin float. Yeah, you just use the peg. Some people call it a peg float or a pin float as opposed to a slip cork.
All right, I'm intrigued. Go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, it is a bit cumbersome to cast something.
That was my next question.
That has quite a long leader, but if you've got somebody that has enough technique to them to where they can lob it out there, because it really is a lob cast, because it's kind of a up and over, get a little bit of distance on it. But the thing is it really is a controlled free line. When you're out there at during a neap tide or after a neap tide, you're dealing with something that's gonna very little current at all, and it just sinks. And you just want to have that shrimp or fish. In this case, we were using shrimp. You want to just sink super slow, but you have that float there to be able to show you, and have some sort of
controls where it goes.
Yeah. And you also do control it from going all the way to the bottom or something like that. And over the last 3 or 4 days, most of these fish have been anywhere from 2 feet deep to no more than about 6 or 8 feet deep. But as the week progressed, the current got faster and faster, and we started going more to the slip corks and doing our traditional thing. So anyway, anybody that's listening to this that gets into that neap tide situation here in the next couple of weeks, don't forget about this that we're talking about is cover that entire water column. You just can't throw a slip cork out there and just stare at it and make it drift. When the tide's not moving, it's not moving. So you need to do something that's going to allow your bait to fish from the top to the bottom, or not necessarily even to the bottom, but just from the, in that top
through the column.
Third. Yeah, exactly. So that was really effective for us for putting fish in the boat. And then, so going towards this weekend, we had increasing tide height or tidal levels or water levels. And so that kind of thing appeals more to me to go in shallow water fishing. So if I've got nice high water in the morning, I would rather go shallow water fishing early, let that kind of transpire, tide change, start dropping out, and then I'll run out into the bay. Today, in fact, we didn't make that transition into the bay just due to had Jason Taylor. He's a listener of the podcast, and him and his family were on the boat, and the kids were all super engaged early on. We had a lot of action, a lot of popping cork going, a lot of trout catching. As the heat built, the kids lost interest. And we did some crab trap running. We ran across the triple tail. Unfortunately, the triple tail didn't eat. But anyway, it was a good trip today, and that was what I just did. I mean, I just took advantage of that, having that higher water in the shallow water areas where we did some popping cork fishing and had a lot of success. Anyway, that's kind of a lot of what I've been doing is speckled trout and then taking advantage of these. I mean, there's been some really big Spanish mackerel out in the bay too that we've been catching on live shrimp while we're trout fishing. So yeah,
that's what Scott Kennedy, we just got his report. That's what he was saying too. They've been doing really well in the Spanish, just under a popping cork.
Yeah. And what I've done, now that I've seen so many Spanish here recently, I upped my leader size up to 40. I got 40-pound fluorocarbon, and I'm using a 1/0 Kale hook. That's just the standard. And that Kale hook's catching that Spanish either like right in the nose or it's catching it like in the corner of the mouth. And we're catching a lot more than we're getting cut off. So that's been a easy, really
nice
good bonus for us. I mean, that thing, when you put the hook into a 3-pound Spanish mackerel or 4-pound Spanish mackerel, that dude is pulling some drag, man.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot of fun. So, I mean, anglers that like the fish catching part of it, and I mean, Spanish are really good to eat. I like to eat them as well. So,
right on.
Anyway, that's kind of what's been going on. And then another, like I mentioned, the triple tail thing. I really haven't been seeing as many over the last couple of weeks as I was earlier back in May and June. But we are still, if we put, say, an hour or so forth going after a triple tail, it seems like we'll be able to find at least one or so within an hour. So it's a great way to beat the heat.
Yeah, get a little breeze right around.
Yeah, keep moving around. Yeah,
exactly. That sounds nice.
And if we can find one and catch one, then that's a double bonus right there. Man, I've targeted redfish a little bit. We actually targeted them up and around the causeway the end of last week, and I've targeted them a couple areas in the sound. And I haven't really found a really good redfish bite. So I don't really have anything to advise on redfish other than I'm not doing it right, apparently, because we're not finding a lot of redfish right now.
Go chase something else.
Well, like I said, I'm either not doing the right technique for what it is that they're looking for right now. But we've been just struggling to put many redfish in the boat. It's just been kind of one here, one there kind of thing.
Yeah, I understand. It's kind of mixed bag.
Yep.
Hard to target them.
Yeah, the guys in the club this past weekend, Patrick, had just fair success. Most of them that caught them were in the industrial canal.
Okay.
And some good slots, so that we had come in. A few that were just over, I'm talking like 26.5, 27-inch reds that they were hoping would shrink in their ice chest or something. I told him you got to let that tail stick out of the ice chest, and
don't give them all the tips now, David. You gotta let these guys earn some of that.
Yeah,
stuff,
that's it.
man.
That's it. Yeah, we better edit that part out.
No way. Buddy of mine, Tyler, sent me a picture last night. They were just kind of dinking around the canals on the sound side. Catch some nice redfish, just free lining on the little croakers.
Good. Well, that's something that I haven't done a lot of here recently. The shrimp bite in deeper water has been fairly clean, where you don't have to burn up 200 shrimp to catch 10 speckled trout. I mean, you're able to really. I mean, I'm still probably buying 150 shrimp a day, but I don't know. There's some days where we're only using 30 or 40 shrimp, and there's some days where we're burning through almost every single one. But for the most part, if you're in the deeper water, our bites have been fairly clean. Going shallow, that's one thing I would say, is that going shallow for redfish and speckled trout, the catfish and the croakers are still pretty bad in certain areas. So we are burning up a lot of bait in those areas as far as live shrimp. And I've been substituting with some bull minnows and just really haven't dialed in on anything for the redfish. So, I mean, I think I bought 5 dozen bull minnows about week and a half ago, and I think I still have about 4 dozen in the live well, so I'm swimming around. So
find you some flounder.
I'll let you know when that improves.
Right. We'll circle back to that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so next report, Butch, you need to be like, hey, man,
how many bull minutes you got with? I love it.
Good stuff.
All right, Captain Patrick, that's a great report as always, man. We got to get – well, actually, this week's the Hey Cap. You got the Hey Cap question. This week's Hey Cap is brought to us by Daycool Heating and Air. As the saying goes, if you don't like the weather, as we saw today, if you don't like the weather in South Alabama, wait 10 minutes because it's going to change. One of the things is very predictable with pricing at Daycool Heating and Air. They offer flat rate pricing and they don't charge for after hours calls. Let's face it, your HVAC always seems to act up whenever you need it the most. Don't get stuck between a rock and a hot place. Daycool offers flat $45 service calls, $59 tune-ups, and they offer free estimates on equipment replacement. The pros at Daycool have been serving Mobile and Baldwin counties for over a decade. Contact them at 251-633-5121 or check them out online at www.daycoolair.com or on the Daycool Heating and Air mobile app. They are license number AL07028. All right, man. This week's Hey Cap was submitted by Jeffrey Gray. And I like this one. I like this one for a couple of different reasons. One, it's hot as heck, and it's hard to keep anything alive right now in water. And I know you are a guru whenever it comes to this. Jeffrey Gray asks, hey, Cap, what are some tips to keeping your catch alive in the live well? And this might be getting into the rodeo tip, so we have to get him a good one here.
This is very applicable for the rodeo coming up this weekend because they have the live speckled trout and live redfish categories. So on keeping my catch alive, the main thing is having water, good salty water, whether it's salty water that you pumped in out of the bay or out of the Gulf or whatever, but then also cooling it back down once you get it in your well. The water temperature right now, I mean, this whole week, the water temperature started out anywhere from 85 to 86 degrees and warming up as high as 92 degrees during the afternoon. So
it's a dang hot tub. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yep. So number one is get you some nice water in your live well. Don't leave it recirculating.
Yeah. I just want to start at the very beginning because this is intriguing to me as well. I'm new to this also. Where are you going to fill up your live well? Is that going to vary where you're fishing or what you're fishing for? Yeah.
So, all right. So I guess I'm going to break it down into about 3 parts. So if I'm down at the southern end of the bay, if I'm at the lower third of Mobile Bay, not too close to Weeks Bay because that thing can dump a bunch of fresh water on you in a hurry. So if you're down towards the mouth of the bay, you should be good to be able to pull water straight off the top this time of the year. But it's so hot, like we're talking about, you're going to need to put and I keep a pile of Ziploc bags on my boat, just, one for putting fillets in for customers, but then 2, I take a lot of ice, and I'll take ice, put it in a bag, drop it in the live well, and you want to get that water temperature cool back down. If you're dealing with water that's in the high 80s or low 90s, you're going to really struggle to keep a fish alive, because if you caught a fish in the bay, just say you caught a fish at the rigs and that fish was somewhere between 12 and 18 feet deep, that water could be
that's a big difference.
It could be 4 to 6 degrees cooler than what it is on the surface, and the oxygen levels could be different. There's a lot of differences there, but the main thing is you can pump that water in, but you need to cool it back down. You need to get it cooler. It needs to be fairly cool to the touch. You don't want it to be like overly cold, because then it's going to shock your fish, but it needs to definitely be cooler than what your water is that you're pumping in. And so you want to cool that down. You want to also use some sort of supplement like live well additive. I really like G-Juice. It's a TH Marine product. I like it a lot. There's some other products out there that are like live well specific products that are like granular products that you can put in there. And most all of them will turn the water blue or green or something like that. But the G-Juice is something that I have found success in using. It helps to remove ammonia out of the water and all that stuff. So that's kind of the key to your water and your water prep, cooling it down a little bit, adding some sort of additive like G-Juice, and then having you a live well set up that's going to be able to recirculate your water, keep it contained. And then if you can add just some straight oxygen to it, or just some straight air bubbles, whatever, like from a Pro Air or the bubble boxes or whatever, anything that you can add air to it like you would aerating your live shrimp or something like that. So that all of that is going to help enhance your water a lot better. And then after that, once you put your catch in the live well, you want to keep that fish. You want to monitor that fish. Like say like this weekend on the rodeo, if I catch a fish that I feel like I need to get down to the rodeo site alive, I'm going to make sure whoever's on the boat with me is still fishing. And I might take 30 minutes or an hour to make sure that fish is good. It sounds ridiculous, but if you go down to the rodeo site and you've got the largest speckled trout of the weekend,
right,
you're going to win a bunch of money. Right. So main thing is keeping that fish upright. Don't overly handle it because you're going to take too much slime coat off of it. So one thing that I really like a boga grip, and I'll put that boga grip in that fish's mouth, and that can kind of help stabilize that fish, and just kind of keeping it from rolling over. So that's a lot of almost ADD-ish information.
Not at all.
I felt like I started from start to finish there. But the main thing is, and then once your fish is in there, just kind of keep monitoring it. And if your water starts warming up because your circulating pumps are running a lot, refresh your ice bags and cool that water back down. And then also like the G-Juice or whatever additive, some of that stuff will slowly break down. So it requires a little bit adding to that.
What kind of time frame are you talking about that you would hold this fish,
David, it takes a little bit of experience. It really takes kind of feeling the fish. The fish will chill out. And Bobby and I talked about this back in
I remember the exact conversation.
You're sitting there, like a lot of times what I'll do is I'll hold the fish basically over its shoulders. I mean, obviously a fish doesn't have shoulders, but behind its gills, over its back. And I'll just sit there and hold that fish, or I'll use a boga grip or something like that. But a lot of times I just hold that fish over its back, and I'll hold it until I feel it relax. And you'll feel it. Like if you're sitting there, especially if you have your hand on the fish, you'll feel the fish relax. And its breathing is gonna change, and it's gonna chill. And there's no other way to explain it than that's what's gonna happen. And once that fish chills, you're gonna let go of it. It's gonna stay upright. It's gonna probably swim a lap or two around the live well, and it's gonna be fine. But if that fish doesn't ever relax like that, it's a good chance it's not going to make it. And that's one of the difficult things about this time of the year. It does. I mean, you take a fish that you just caught in, say, 86-degree water. You got in water, it's a little bit cooler than that. It's more comfortable for the fish, but there's so many shock factors involved in that. But if you take your time, you prep your water well, have good aeration, all of it's doable.
Yeah, Pat, I was curious. You mentioned the G-Juice earlier. How much would someone typically add to their live well, to benefit the fish? Or
Well, the good thing is most of these products have real specific directions as to how much per gallons of water. So if you know approximately what your live well holds in gallons, then I mean most of these products have a specific amount that's optimal. And I've found that going optimal is good, and you can actually go a little bit more and you're not going to really hurt anything. You're going to
more like an ish.
Yeah, exactly.
This amount ish.
It's definitely an ish, but you definitely want to at least want to go to their baseline for whatever their recommendations are.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And I'm sure the manufacturer doesn't mind at all either if you go.
No.
Right, that's right.
I'm sure they're quite content with a little bit over.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Patrick. I know you like blue waves, and that's what you do. That's what you guide out of. Not saying anything bad about the pumps that come with those boats. I just know a lot of guys that, especially like you and Richard and Bobby, that do this for a living. That, like you said, that live fish can make the difference in winning or not. Do you replace the factory pumps with something aftermarket, or do you just roll with it?
That's a good question, Butch. Right now, in the last couple boats I've had, I've just stuck with what came with it, and it's either
so it works. That's good.
Or Tsunami or something like that, and it's doable. However, the amount of use that I put through them, they don't usually hold up very well. Hooker is a pump manufacturer that I'm interested in. They're brushless pumps, and that may be something that for my next boat, I don't know that I'm going to re-outfit the boat I have now with something like that, because the system I have in place is pretty effective. But
sure,
man,
I was just curious.
It's certainly something that's been on my mind. It's a considerable price difference. What I've looked at. I mean, you're looking at, you've got your quote unquote standard option pump options, and you go to something like the Hooker pumps, and you go from standard to adding a couple $1,000s.
Dang.
But if these pumps last, and I don't have any experience, I don't really haven't really even talked to anybody, but claim is that they last a lot longer and have a lot more functionality to them, where they have variable speeds and stuff like that. But
yeah,
all of that is very intriguing to me. So it may be something that I add on the next boat build.
Understood. I was just curious, man. That's a great hey cap question, Jeffrey. We appreciate that, man. Jeffrey's going to get a prize back from the slick lure. Jeffrey, make sure you email us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com to redeem your slick lure packages. And you guys make sure you email us your hey cap questions at alabama@bestfishingreport.com. Go over to Best Fishing Report on the Facebook page and make sure you join our Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report private group. We appreciate the report and the answer to that hey cap question, Captain Patrick. What's your bookings look like?
I'm stretching. There's I think we booked like three. I think we booked.
Find somebody at midnight. You book a midnight 6 trip.
Yeah, I think I booked 3 or 4 more trips in August in the last couple of days. I mean, August is starting to fill up. July totally filled up after the last podcast. And what I'm telling people now is, like, if you're local and you really like trout fishing or red fishing or whatever, let's start looking at some stuff in September, October, November.
Oh, yeah.
I love December. So, I mean, there's a lot of really good opportunities coming up at the end of this year. If you're interested in fishing with me, let's try to get some stuff on the books there, take advantage of some of the cooler weather. But,
No doubt.
I mean, heck, if you're in August and you just got to go, we'll do a little bit of kind of what I'm doing now. We'll do some trout fishing, do some red fishing, do some triple tail fishing, and see what we come up with.
Awesome, man. Well, if people want to book a trip with you and try and taper a trip, or just what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Give me a call, 251-747-1554. You can shoot me a text on that number as well. And then I've got my website, uglyfishing.com. Just if you are strictly looking at what my availability looks like, all you have to do is click the book now button and you'll see my calendar. Anything with a red dot, there's nothing available on that day. Anything that doesn't have a red dot or red circle, then you should be good to be able to put a booking in.
Awesome, man. We appreciate the report. We appreciate the hey cap question, dude. We'll talk to you soon. Keep whacking them.
All right, thanks, Butch.
Be safe out there, man. Watch these storms. Goodness gracious, crazy times.
Yeah, be careful, Pat.
Yes, sir. Thanks, guys.
All right, Mr. Dave. It's always good to hear from old ugly fishing.
Indeed.
Dude's got it figured out. For sure. Let's head on down offshore, man. Let's see what Captain Dustin Bedgood's doing with Fed Up Charters. What you say, Captain Dustin?
Hi, guys. How are y'all?
Good, man. You dodging
Real
storms
good.
today, or you staying dry?
I fished for a little while this morning. We got rained on a little bit, but stayed away from the lightning long enough to add a little kid on the boat. He got enough action in. We were good to go home.
Good.
But yeah, definitely, watching the weather, I've got caught quite a few times recently in storms, so I try to stay away from them.
No doubt. It's definitely been sketchy. Well, what you been up to? I know you've been offshore. I saw a nice sword Saturday or Sunday, I believe.
Yeah, we caught a nice one on Saturday. We have been doing a little bit of offshore fishing when the weather's been nice. We only try to go when it's nice. We don't really push it too much. So we've got to go a few days, and a few days was really rough. Spent a pretty good bit of time on the shelf, just grouper fishing and tiles and longtail sea bass, and there's a lot of stuff you can catch right there on the edge. We run into a lot of big snapper and AJs. A lot of times when I'm fishing with electric reels, you'll hit a rock and drop down 3 or 4 rigs, and it'll be AJs on it around, and they'll destroy everybody's tackle. That's always fun too.
Dustin, for the people that don't know what you mean by the edge, could you explain that for me?
So what I would call the edge is everything between 200 foot and 1,500 to 2,000. It's just the edge of the shelf where it drops off. It's where I find the most contour, the most relief, a lot of natural bottom, where the most life is. There's all kind of opportunities. You may be in blue water one day and muddy river water the next. While sitting on the shelf, you can catch blue marlin while you're grouper fishing, tunas. There's pretty much, you can do everything right there. I think a lot of people either stop just short of it or either blow past it. It's kind of changed, now, but that's what I see most of the time. Either everybody's just short of it or everybody's way past. And I think that's where the most of the life's at, bait included.
Well, what exactly are you looking for on the shelf? What blows your skirt up? What makes you say, all right, this is where I'm fishing?
It depends on what I'm looking for. If I'm looking for groupers, depending on species, I'm working different depth. I like to, all the sword fishing, anywhere on that, I think anywhere on the shelf that, there's relief and it's 1,000 foot deep or more, there is definitely swordfish there at times. The grouper, it's just move up the hill just a little bit or in the same area, the same depth. Just start, anytime you mark up stuff, fish it, and whatever's there, remember it. Mark it on your screen. Keep notes about everything. But if you find a rock in 1,000 foot of water, you're going to like what you catch off of it. And it's always going to be fun. You pull up there and drop down, you're usually going to catch something good. Especially, I think a lot of times when you find those places out in 1,000 foot or more, just out in the middle of nowhere, I think a lot of times you may be the only person that's, you may be one of a handful of people or the only person that's fishing that rock. When you pull up there and drop it down, you may catch barrelfish, tiles, all different, groupers. It just takes a little bit of time, and some days it's terrible. Some days there's not a lot of action. But they're usually white snappers and beeliners, are there too to help you fill the box up when you're a little bit shallower for the groupers. But I just like anything where I can find good relief, anything that's different on the bottom. It's usually some kind of live bottom where if there's any relief, there's usually life there.
How far out is this from the edge, or is the edge rather from, say, Orange Beach or Fort Morgan?
Well, Orange Beach, we run out 60 miles, 68, 70 miles to swordfish, back up 20, 15 miles. Everything's right there quick. It falls off fast. So if you're at 65 miles, you're out there in 1,000 foot of water. So you're in it, you're past it there. So inside of that.
That's a great question, David, because I've been getting a ton of people ask, okay, now that snapper is over, what do we do now?
What are the other options?
And you can go. If you run east, you're going to get to it a lot quicker from Orange Beach. It's not as far, and that's what I would suggest. Most people, I know people who go out and will still drop a conventional tackle down 600-700 foot of water and fish for them, and that's fun. You just can't do it a lot. I would tell everybody to save some money, buy one electric reel if that's all you can get. Buy one and go out there and spend some time and just get. All you have to have squid and chicken deep drop rigs and wait. And drop it down and just see what happens. And when you catch something, just remember it. It's not really going to change.
So what's the depth that you would like between, before you go to an electric reel? What's your cutoff for conventional tackle?
Oh, my cutoff is shallow.
That depends on your gumption, I think. How big a boy are you?
Yeah.
How early in the day it is.
That's right, too. How hot it is.
If it's me, if I'm the one fishing and I'm grouper fishing, or if I'm fishing for meat fish that I'm trying to catch to eat, and I'm not worried about the sport as much, if it's 200 something foot, I got my people using electric reels.
Right on.
Now if they're wanting to use conventional, I always have them rigged up, ready to go. Most of the conventional stuff we do in anything over 200 foot is either if we're trying to catch a big grouper, or if we jig a lot. We do a lot of different jigging, and that's, we found success in that as much as the live bait or the dead bait. You get some quality bites on the jig, not just the big heavy diamond jigs or the knife jigs, but also slow pitch jigging. There's all different techniques that, there's really not a lot of people that do that.
Do you have specific baits that you like to, say, target grouper or amberjack, something like that?
Yeah, what's been the ticket lately? Anything sticking out to you?
Yeah, if I'm amberjack fishing and I, want to catch them, I usually catch hardtails. But I always like to have cigar minnows whenever I can get them. If I'm, especially if I'm scamp fishing up shallower. But usually, if I'm fishing out, anything over 300 foot of water, I mostly use dead bait, just squid, bonita, hardtails that are cut up. I mean, that's really what I use is just dead bait. I don't really use any live bait once I get that deep. But we still will fish with the jig. On Saturday when we caught the swordfish, we had I think our biggest grouper was a scamp, and it was in like 400 and something foot of water, and it come off a jig. I mean, yeah, you definitely have to have the right reel.
And the right angler, in my opinion, for a jig.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you got to have the right angler. But a lot of people when they think about jigging, they think about, really trying to work that jig real hard.
Right.
A real heavy jig. And it's not all jigging techniques are that way. There's a lot of people who they have electric reels set up for jigging. And they have special reels with high, they have a high gear to get that high retrieve. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a lot about, once you start doing some of that, it's specialized tackle, but it's really productive. And I see the bait shops in Orange Beach, they have more of this jigging stuff. Not a lot of people do it, but I'm seeing the combos set up at Sam's. Chris has those in there, and a lot of people are buying them and using them. It's just, something different, especially if you're looking for something to do when snapper season's not out. That's how we catch the biggest beeliners is on the jig.
What kind of beeliners? I don't know if we've ever caught a beeliner on a jig.
Yeah, it's all about the kind of jig you're using. Most of the time, you're probably dropping a jig that was just too big for them to go after.
Yeah, well, what do you like for beeliner?
We use it's like a butterfly jig or a slow pitch jig. And really? you set the weight based off of the depth and the current.
Certainly.
And you have to use, and sometimes when you're using those light jigs, you have to have light braid on your reel. I mean, like 30 or 40 pound braid with a little short piece of fluorocarbon leader, because you don't want your bait to get scoped out very much. And then when you do hook a big snapper or amberjack, it's on then. You got a little bass rod and 40 pound braid, and you're fighting a 80 pound amberjack. But it usually works out where he takes most of it. So, but yeah, I think most people just get stuck in that. And I've said it before, I'm not a great grouper fisherman. I think I'm getting better every day. But like the scamps, I mean, I had a customer of mine that sword fished with me one day, and like 2 or 3 days later, they left out of Dolphin Island, took their boat with an iPilot, and went out and just fished on rocks. And man, the box of beeliners and scamps they had, I was envious of. I've never caught. They had like 24 scamps. Like I've never even done that before.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Put in a little time. I love a diamond jig for a scamp. I'd say that's probably one of my favorite baits to catch scamp on. It's a nice diamond jig.
Yeah, and so I think the diamond jig works really good, but I think there's jigs out now that work better. The butterfly jigs and stuff and the pitch jigs, when you pick them up and you drop it, it flutters like right. It's like a big spoon or something. It flutters real slow and it takes time to get back to the bottom. Whereas that diamond jig, when you pull it up, it'll go straight back to the bottom, straight down.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah.
Not a lot of flutter in it. You want more flutter. You want a wider jig. You want it to have more action.
So what the difference?
Like 250 gram jig would be an average, 200 to 250.
Captain Dustin, I got to give you a shout out actually in the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report. I went snapper fishing, I guess it was 2 Fridays ago. It was the last day for us recreational guys, and I believe it was actually the week before, or the new show. It was either a tip you gave or just something that you hounded on was live bait. You need live bait, good live bait. Take your time to catch live bait. And I made it a point with all the guys on the boat. It doesn't really matter how long it takes us to get these baits. We want to. I knew where some good baits were from some of the charter guys, and we just dropped some sabikis down and caught a really, really nice mess of those Spanish sardines, what I call the greenback cracks. 100%. There's no doubt in my mind that's why we caught 12, 20 pounders. I mean, I did not release one single fish, and there was a couple boats out there with us on the same spot that couldn't get a bite.
Yeah, that's because all the fish were just sitting under your boat waiting on you to drop one.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what happens. I mean, they're not stupid. I mean, they want that. They like that fresh bait, especially when you drop it down and they start eating. The oil starts coming out of them. It just gets everything alive. Yeah, it's hard for a lot of people to do it, but once you start fishing with that bait and you're doing that, if you'll just scoop your dip net in there and get you about 10 or 15 of them and throw them out in the water without a hook in them, that's just going to fire them up even more. Then instead of 2 or 3 people hooking up, everybody's going to hook up.
Water's going to turn red with them.
That's right. You'll get them coming up shallower, and then when they come up shallower, you just hook them and lock the drag down, and they can't get you back in the structure. And then at that, when I have them and they'll do that, then I have rods, I have stuff rigged up already that has nothing but hooks on them. And when I have them start coming to the boat like that, I take everybody's tackle with weights on, and I just go straight hooks, and that's how we catch the big one.
Just sitting there pitch baiting them big pearl bellies.
That's right. You pitch the bait out, and it tries to swim to the bottom for safety. And when it swims down about 10 foot, then it'll make a big turn and try to come back to the top, and it's over.
That's right, man. Well, you guys talked about a swordfish. Tell me a little bit about that, man. Depth, what he hit, and how much he weighed. And tell us a little about the fight.
So, we killed one fish. We caught another fish the day before, a little smaller fish, let it go. The swordfish bite is still good. The moon was not great, but the bite is good. We had several bites. What happened was we were fishing some different bait. A lot of people I fish with that know a little bit about it and definitely have their opinion on the way we fish. When I'm fishing with them, we kind of fish. We don't fish the squid as much because when the fish hits it, he'll tear it up, and then you're just down there fishing with a messed up bait. You never want to do that, but I found that, the last few times I've been fishing, I always starting out with either some kind of belly bait or a mullet or something like that, a bonita belly, something like that is what I was fishing with. And, I would get a bite and then the fish wouldn't commit. Like he would just whack the bait and then leave, no commitment. Well, when I see that happen, I immediately drop the squid down. And, he comes up and hits that. And then, you're just like, all right, well, it's the same old story. He's not coming back. And you reel it up a few feet, and then he almost rips the rod holder out of the gun. And, he's instantly there because you're fishing with what he's wanting to eat. He didn't like what you were fishing with earlier. He'd hit it and get a taste of it, and I just really think he wasn't liking it.
Wanted to slurp that big squid down.
Yeah, and I don't use a big squid. I think a lot of people may try to do that, but the tackle shops, if you go in the tackle shops, they got trolling squid. It's like a 300 gram squid or bigger.
Right.
It's huge, and I have never seen a squid inside a swordfish that was that big. I've seen a couple of squid that people caught that were that big, but most of them that I see are way smaller.
Oh yeah, I think 9 or 10 inches is plenty big.
Oh yeah, that's plenty. The same day, there was a lot of grass out on the edge, and we stopped a few times. We saw a floating piece of bamboo and something else, and we specifically stopped, to catch those chicken dolphins off of it. We pulled up there and we saw them. We knew they wasn't big, and we were like, okay, whatever. But we still caught a few of them just to put in the box for that fresh belly.
Mm-hmm.
because that's about as good a bait as you can get. But if you can't get that fish to commit or can't get a bite, put the squid down. They may tear it up, and you have to re-rig another one. But try it if you can't get the commitment.
Awesome, man. Well, that's a great report. We got to get that offshore tip from you. This week's offshore tip is brought to us by Advanced Transmission. Towing a boat is an important part of having a great day on the water for many anglers. Are you sure your transmission is up to task? Get your transmission checked out and serviced before you tow your boat this season at Advanced Transmission in Spanish Fork, Alabama. They install external transmission coolers for those who engage in regular towing to keep the most expensive and complicated part of your vehicle running smoothly. Advanced Transmission has well over 300 certified customer reviews with a 97.8% satisfaction rating, so they'll take care of you. Give them a call at 251-626-6061 or check them out online at www.advanced-transmission.com. Make sure you tell them you heard this ad on the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report for a 10% discount. What you think for an offshore tip this week, Captain Dustin?
I always talk about bait. It's repetitive for me. When you come out of, the last few days, especially when I've been inshore fishing, when you come out of Dolphin Island, there are bonita. Dolphin Island, or Fort Morgan, there are bonita everywhere. Mm-hmm. They're all around those shrimp boats, those ships, everything. Well, for all the people that are going grouper fishing this weekend, or going out and fishing the edge, fishing for whatever, catch you some of those bonitas. Catch a bunch of them, fill your box up, carry them out there with you, cut them up, use those as bait. Use those as much as you're using anything else. Everything out there eats those bonitas. You can use them for sword baits. You can use them, cut them up for grouper bait. You can pretty much use them for everything. So my tip of the week is spend some time, catch some of those fresh bonitas for bait.
I love it, man. I love it. Yeah, that's a great report, man. We appreciate you being on. I know you're busy, but if folks want to get up with you and book an inshore or an offshore trip, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
The best way to get in touch with me is call me at 251-377-7135 or fedupcharters@gmail.com.
Awesome, buddy. We appreciate the report, and as always, we appreciate having you on.
All right, thank you, guys.
Be safe out there, and we'll talk to you soon, Cap. All right, Mr. David, that's another great offshore report. Last but certainly not least, I want to get the onshore report from the Pier Pounder. What you been up to, bud?
Oh, mostly dodging thunderstorms, That's like everybody.
Sounds like the name of the game today, yeah.
I think so, yeah. You see the theme in mid-July, it's like try not to get fried while you're out there, either by the sun or by electricity.
No doubt.
Falling out of the clouds, so yeah.
What you been up to? You've been from the I guess the pier still. We talk about the pier a little bit. I guess the pier's still closed, right?
It is. They're well along in the renovation work. It's going to be probably another month or so, just from casual observation. I'm not privy to any particular information or whatever, but I do try and watch it almost a daily basis. But they are supposed to come out with some kind of an announcement soon about at least giving us an idea of when they expect it to be done. The original estimates were mid-July. Well, here it is mid-July, and we're still waiting.
Yeah, golly, I can't believe it's mid-July already. This year's flying by.
So the pier's been closed for 2 months now.
Dang.
But they've got a lot of the structural work done now. The bones of the new observation platform are up.
That's going to be cool.
It really is. It's going to be great access. It's going to give, especially the people that just pay to walk on the pier, a nice, safe place to where they can watch the fishing.
But stay out of the way a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. You won't have the angler, being underneath the anglers and being in danger of being hooked or have a fish flopped in your face or something like that.
Yeah, a number of things could go wrong there. So, that's cool, man. Well, what you been up to? You've been fishing from the surf? Where you been? What you been catching?
A little bit of everything. Yeah, I did some surf fishing, did some shore fishing, did some dock fishing, and also fishing from the seawall at Perdido Pass. That was a nice adventure. A lot of the people that have been fishing the pier have been fishing the seawall because you catch a lot of the same species there. Ladyfish, bluefish, blue runners early in the morning, and then as the sun breaks on through the day, you can get nice runs of Spanish mackerel through the pass, especially once the boat traffic dies down. the charter boats will linger along the seawall trying to catch bait with sabiki rigs before they move offshore. And once they leave by about 8 or 8:30, the pass gets relatively quiet again. And the day I fished it, the tide was still moving in and the water was getting clearer. The Spanish were pressing the small alewives up against the seawall. And I just like I do on the pier, I started catching them with my little ribbon rig and I'd hook them in the belly and flip them out and let them drift along in the current, and caught some nice Spanish mackerel off the seawall with my ultralight.
Just free lining?
Yeah, just free lining.
That's fun. I like fishing like that.
A lot of the same kind of setup like Patrick was talking about with 40-pound monofilament, long shanked hook. And you get cut off occasionally, but most of those fish are going to be 1 to 3 pounds, and they're just a lot of fun on live.
And those are screamers too, man. They're fun.
They really are, and they'll rip off, 30, 40 yards or more, and you'll get several good runs out of a 3-pound fish. For sure. Well, let's talk about surf a little bit. What's been going on with surf? Still seeing the same pattern, whiting, pompano. Pompano kind of phasing out a little bit. They really are. Yeah, this during midsummer. Now it's still hit or miss. Every now and then somebody will luck up and hit a nice school of pompano where they'll stay in it for a while. But most of the time, most of the good catches are whiting, and there's still some nice size whiting. They're on the last full moon, they were still spawning again, which they do all through the summer. They like to, come in and out. And a lot of guys make the mistake of overcasting those fish and over tackling them. These periods that we've had where it's been really, really calm and the water will clear up, I go down to just using what everybody calls a Carolina rig, with just a real small Kale hook, like a number 6 Kale hook, and a half a piece of shrimp that's been peeled. And, no fish bites or anything like that typically, unless the pinfish are real bad. And then sometimes you just use fish bites and you can catch whiting like that with just using fish bites by itself. That's nice. That's a nice way to fish for me. Saying all the Spanish mackerel talk made me hungry. And it made me think of my buddy Hank Shaw, the hunter, angler, gardener, cook. I just Googled, because I know he's cooked some Spanish for us before. He's done it a couple different ways, and it came up with the name of the recipe is tuna with red pepper sauce. But you can actually substitute bonita, tuna, or mackerel. So you guys look that up, hunter, angler, gardener, cook at Honest Food. You can just Google. I literally Googled Spanish recipe, hunter, angler, gardener, cook. Sorry to interrupt you there. Well, that's great, man. That sounds like things are heating up, or they are hot, as we've decided on this show. What else? You been doing any early or late top water or any speckled trout, redfish in the surf or anything like that? Yeah, I got no joy with the top water. The days no love at all. But the previous to that, the fishing under the dock lights was just fantastic. Lots and lots of white trout, in the backwaters right now, the back bay. And also places like Cedar Point Pier and Fairhope Pier have been productive on the white trout. Still some good drum and a few bull reds at Cedar Point, and some better numbers of bull reds from the guys that regularly fish Fairhope Pier have been doing well there as well. That's awesome. How you targeting those white trout? Anything different? With white trout, I like the little tiny fluke by Finesse. And I found some 1/32 ounce crappie jig heads that had a wider bite hook on them than conventional crappie jigs. And it seemed like I had a much better hookup ratio with that. This time of year, you get a lot of sweet trout mixed in with the white trout. And it's, sometimes that's seems to be the dominant catch almost, is the sweet trout. And then other times the small specks move in and even redfish occasionally as well. So you have to have a fairly stout hook that's, not just a little wire hook that if you hook a good fish, you want to be able to land him. Oh yeah. That's the whole point. Yeah. Even though, I always use a net, of course. But, right. You ever heard of a crusher jig? Dusty was on last week. It's the only reason I say it, because it got me really fired up. And it sounds like the same exact thing you're talking about, a smaller, crappie jig kind of deal. And he's been smashing fish in the surf with it.
He called it a crusher jig. Calcutta makes it. Sounds like pretty much the exact same thing what you're talking about. So that's cool. I like a little continuity in my reports.
Absolutely. Yeah, and another good jig setup that I've heard Dusty mention is the like the goofy jig or kind of set up where you have a little fly and that banana jig, and you can tip the banana jig with a piece of shrimp or a piece of fish bites, and it's amazing the number of different species that I've caught with that particular rig this time of year. Days when the Gulf is calm and clear and you can wade out to like thigh deep, knee deep, waist deep water and cast further out off the drop off, you can catch anything from pompano to whiting, everything in between, all the usual suspects, the ladyfish and jacks and bluefish and everything else will hit it as well.
That's fun, man. That's my kind of fishing there. I like jig fishing.
Yeah, and you can go as light as you want to. That's one thing I love about
me too.
Beach fishing this time of year is that there's nothing to break you off, and you can go light and
have some fun with it.
Yeah, most of the fish are going to be relatively small, 1 to 3 pounds, and typically I'm going to concentrate on those 99% of the smaller fish that are in the surf zone and just tackle down to them.
Till one of those 30-pound Jack Crevalle eats your lightweight.
Yeah,
I've been seeing the beach bum and those guys catching some nice one of those on the plugs and stuff off the top water.
Yeah, that's one thing that
that'll wear you out from the beach. Good Lord.
Oh, when a jack attack happens, it's like everything you see sheer panic. All these fish are hitting you in the legs. And you know what's fixing to happen, and all of a sudden these wash tub size holes open in the water around you.
It's on.
And it's like you turn around and you see your big rod is 50 yards away.
Yep, too far.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, well.
Always. Well, man, that's a great report, buddy. We got to get that onshore tip from you. This week's onshore tip is brought to us by Fishbites. Are you tired of scrambling for bait whenever you decide to go fishing? Have an artificial bait that's better than live bait, ready to go at a moment's notice with Fishbites. It's easy to pack and travel with, and it's also shelf stable, and not to mention tough. With Fishbites, the bait stays on the hook and the fish stay on the bait. Check out the full line of scented saltwater and freshwater baits and tackle at fishbites.com. What do you think for a tip this week?
Yeah, I would think that going along the angle of having artificial baits at the ready, is a good way to go. But a lot of times this time of year, especially when the fishing is slow, a lot like what we were discussing in the offshore reports and the onshore as well, if you can match the hatch and find some small LYs or a little mullet or something like that, you're going to be a lot of times miles ahead as far as stimulating a bite. The same fish that won't touch an artificial will gobble up a baby LY in a heartbeat. So what I do is typically carry my 5-gallon bucket, and I've got a couple of aerators on it, especially this time of year, because the water is so hot. It's harder to keep the bait alive for a longer period of time. And so I'm carrying the bucket, but inside it, I've got my little Minitrol, the flow bucket.
Flow troll
bucket. And in it, I'll put a small cast net. I'll wind that cast net up and wrap the line around it and put it in there. So it, it weighs 5 pounds, maybe 6, but it's worth the effort when you get in a situation, and you need some live bait and it's swimming all around you, but you don't have a little sabiki or anything like that. You can put a 1/4 inch mesh cast net in there that's about 4 or 5 feet long, and a couple of throws, you'll have plenty of bait to fish with.
Yeah, can make the difference in a good day and a bad day.
Absolutely, yeah.
Or a good day and a great day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can be on the fish, and that's really the best kind of tip for this time of year is to be on top of it and be ready with either artificials or with a live bait, whichever is going to fit the situation.
Yeah, that's a great tip, man. Well, we got to do What'd You Learn before we get out of here, Mr. David. And this week's What Did You Learn is brought to us by the Alabama Deep Sea Fishing Rodeo, July 16th through the 19th. And the Rodeo Open competition is $50 per angler, and there are additional jackpot competitions for big game, king mackerel, red snapper, and speckled trout. Tickets are available online at fishingchaos.com and are now available at the following retail outlets: Academy Mobile, Academy West Mobile, Academy Foley, Greer's at Foul River, Tackle This, Shoot That, Quince, as well as the rodeo site on Dauphin Island.
So what did you learn today?
Man, I learned a lot today. All the guys had really, really good stuff. I would say the one thing that stuck out to me was what Patrick was saying that you taught him. So let's talk about that a little bit more. What you taught him about, as far as I never would have made a leader, 6 or 8 feet on a popping cork. So just talk us through that a little bit. Why and how you figured that out?
A lot of times when you see fish suspended, you want to put the bait at their level, or you don't want it to sink down below them, like Patrick was talking about. So if you can establish what that depth is, then why not just, pin your float to that depth? On the pier, I would use a lot of these different size styrofoam cigar floats. And they're available in sizes from 1.5 inches up to 3 inches.
So you just meaning literally the old school style corks that have a hole in the middle with a peg that you put through to pinch the line, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's, when we started, it was you take just a piece of styrofoam and stick a knife through it and wind the line around. Right. And if you got a fast running fish like a king or a bonita or something, it would cut that in half. But
lost your cork.
Yeah. But these styrofoam floats are pretty durable, and they have these little plastic pegs, these hard plastic pegs that you stick in them. Mm-hmm. Well, you can use it in 2 ways. You can either put the line through the hole in the float and pin it at a certain depth, which in the case that Patrick was talking about, more than 10 years ago, we were doing that and setting the depth at about 7 or 8 feet, because that's where the trout were, down at the visibility line, and we would just cast it up current and let it float through. And we knew it was going to stay fixed at that depth or come up a little bit. The neat thing about the cigar float is that it's, you can tailor it to the size of your bait. So if you're using a 3-inch shrimp and a 2-inch float, he's going to just be able to pull that float upright as he swims along, and he's trying to swim to the bottom, and the float is floating upright. Well, when a fish gets after that shrimp and the shrimp starts jumping away from him, it takes the tension off the float, and what happens is the float falls over. So that's an indicator that you're fixing to get a bite, is that the float falls over because the shrimp's jumping up. And then when the shrimp goes, the bait, gets eaten, and the line starts to tighten up, the float goes upright, and then it goes underwater, and he's got it. So
fish on.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Set the hook. Nowadays they make the peg as well has a little hole in it, and you have the option of putting a sinker stop on your line, a bobber stop, and you can run the line through the stopper and then through your float.
So you're adjusting the depth with the bobber stopper.
Yeah. So you can set your bobber stopper at 15 feet if you want to, and that little bobber stopper is small enough to go through your guides, even on the micro guides that you have on braided line. And you can cast it. So I've set it 12, 15 feet deep before, and fish that bobber stop like that. That's cool. Yeah.
I definitely learned that today, man. What'd you learn? Did you learn anything cool?
Oh, yeah. I learned a ton about Dustin's, offshore report. That's it's really fascinating to me in a lot of ways.
It's a different world out there, isn't it?
It really is, and you think about, the first time I went out and water offshore, and they're like, well, how far you think you are from land? And I said, oh, miles, and he's like, no, it's 300 feet straight down,
That's true too.
Yeah. But the concept of cranking that much line, vertically is, can wear you out in a hurry too.
No doubt.
Yeah. And certainly the world of fishing for swordfish and just major pelagics like that is just really fascinating to landlubber like me, you know.
Mm-hmm. I like when Dustin talks about, dropping down 12 or 1,500 foot with a big chunk of bait, squid, or whatever beneath the belly it may be, because you never know what you're going to catch, man. That's why I like the offshore world. Sea monsters.
Oh, yeah, beyond this line. Another thing I really enjoyed, too, was the continuity between Scott's report and Patrick's. They're seeing Spanish mackerel showing up along with their targeted speckled trout. And both of them had made the same adjustment where they were targeting, going ahead and just shifting their approach a little bit and catching those Spanish mackerel as well. It was like a target of opportunity came into range, and they took advantage of it.
Yeah, that's what you got to do, especially this time of year. There's all kind of stuff out there this time of year.
Yeah, when the water gets this hot, we can't be too terribly picky or
That's right.
liable to go hungry.
That's right.
For a few days.
Well, Mr. David, I truly appreciate you co-hosting with me today, and I really enjoyed it.
Same here. Yeah, it's been fascinating to be on this side of the microphone for a change.
That's right. It's a little different, isn't it?
Yeah. And there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and I'm sure that everybody, appreciates the effort that you and Joe put into this. And
we appreciate all the support.
It's been a great journey, and I feel honored to have been along and be a part of this. So,
oh yeah, since day one.
Yeah,
one of our first contributors. I know you've been doing a lot more beach and pier fishing. Sounds like the piers are going to be shut down for a little while longer. But if folks want to get up with you and get a surf trip with you or a pier trip whenever the pier gets fixed, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
The easiest way is to just contact me through my webpage, and that's pierpounder.com, PIERPOUNDER. And it's got my phone number, contact information, my email, whatever some breakdowns about pricing, the type of trips that I do, just a little short list about what to bring along and that kind of thing. So,
yes, sir.
It's different from boat fishing, but it's the simplicity of it. A lot of people like the economy of it, and I just try to introduce them to the neat world of from shore fishing.
That's what it's all about. Yeah. Diversification a little bit. It's always fun to learn something new, for sure.
And every time I go, it's a new adventure,
No doubt about it.
Especially when I'm making new friends along the way. That's a neat thing about it.
That's what it's all about. All right, folks, that's going to be another Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report. We appreciate you guys as always. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like us to email you the podcast each week, just head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR, and we'll email you the new show each week. You guys keep whacking them. We'll see you next week.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by Great Days Outdoors, the South's finest hunting and fishing magazine. Pick up your copy wherever magazines are sold, or check them out at greatdaysoutdoors.com. And also KillerDock. Are you suffering from dock dysfunction? Check out a full line of dock enhancement at KillerDock.com. That's KillerDock.com.
Also brought to you by Hilton's Real-Time Navigator, bringing you the highest quality online satellite fishing chart since 2004. Your source for sea tips, altimetry, currents, and watercolor at Hilton'sOffshore.com. Also brought to you by Foster Contracting, Fortified Roofing Pros. Did you know you could save up to 40% on your homeowner's insurance with a fortified roof? Learn more at FortifiedRoofingPros.com or call them at 251-973-9999. Also brought to you by MDH Foundation Repair. If your home was experiencing foundation problems, MDH Foundation Repair has the best solutions to fix it right and fix it now and protect your most important asset, your home. Check them out at MDHFoundationRepair.com.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by Joe Baya and National Land Realty. If I can help you in any way with the purchase or sale of land in Alabama or Florida, whether it's timberland, farmland, recreational land like hunting land, or even agricultural land or ranch land like a horse farm, drop me a message at jbaya@nationalland.com. That's JBAYA@nationalland.com.